Hi everyone, my name is Lauren James, and in this video, I'll be presenting on the 2024 published journal article titled The Effects of Different Extreme Weather Events on Attitudes Towards Climate Change. This topic fits perfectly within our Unit 1 focus on high impact weather events, human behavior, perception, and the broader intersection of weather, climate, and society. This research explores the complex relationship between personal experiences with extreme weather and attitudes towards climate change. The authors wanted to test whether certain weather events actually shift public perception about climate change or if these experiences have little to no effect. I found this particular research incredibly compelling because it directly addresses a question that many of us may ponder. Does experiencing a natural disaster make us more likely to believe in climate change? Our unit has delved into the sociological aspects of weather events, and this article provides empirical data on human perception and behavioral responses in the context of climate change, which makes it highly relevant to our coursework. The purpose of this specific study was to provide new evidence on whether direct exposure to extreme weather events, specifically floods, hurricanes, wildfires, and severe storms, actually influence an individual's attitude towards climate change. While many studies have touched on this, there's been no clear consensus, and many previous findings were largely correlational. The authors aim to move beyond this mere association to see if experiencing these events causes a shift in belief or even support for climate change or climate action. A key strength of their methodology was the use of a sophisticated statistical technique called a dynamic or event study difference in difference approach, which is often abbreviated as DID or DID. This quantitative research design compares changes in attitudes between groups that were directly exposed to extreme weather events and those that were not across multiple points in time. They utilized a three-wave panel survey from the United States to observe changes in an individual's attitude over time rather than just taking a snapshot at one point. This means that they used numerical data and tracked the same individuals over an extended period of time. Imagine comparing two groups. One group of people who experienced an extreme weather event and another similar group who did not. The DID model essentially compares the change in attitudes over time in the exposed group to the change in attitudes over time in the unexposed group. This approach allows researchers to better isolate the effect of weather events itself, controlling for other pre-existing factors or trends that might influence attitudes, which makes their findings more robust. The research that I am presenting today uses data from a panel survey that was conducted in 2010, 2012, and 2014. So while the article is very recent, the data itself is from a slightly earlier period that is offering insights prior to COVID-19 pandemic. So that may have shifted some priorities and the relative impact of weather events. The data set included survey responses for measuring the beliefs about climate change and the support for climate action, which I put down below in this chart from a scale of 1 to 5. These responses were linked to information on whether a respondent had recently experienced a major weather event. The weather event studied included hurricanes, floods, wildfires, and severe storms. By comparing people in an affected region to people in unaffected regions, the authors had a control group that could isolate whether attitudes towards climate change shifted after an event. So, what did the researchers find? Interestingly, the study found that only experiencing wildfires had a statistically significant shift in people's attitudes. People who had recently experienced wildfires showed a small but noticeable increase in their acknowledgement of climate change and a greater willingness to support climate action. In contrast, floods, hurricanes, and severe storms did not appear to change people's beliefs or concerns in any meaningful way. This was a particularly noteworthy finding, suggesting that for these other categories of extreme weather, direct experience does not necessarily translate into a shifted perspective on climate change. The researchers also noticed that the effects of wildfires faded over time. While the concern was heightened immediately after the event, the impact was found to be short-lived and diminished as weeks and months passed. As seen in Figure 1, the results in gray correspond to the pre-exposure analysis, which compares people who haven't directly experienced an extreme weather event, which the event time is -1. The results in black correspond to the post-exposure analysis. Event time 0 is the effects after the initial exposure, and event time 1 is 1 year after the initial exposure. These findings suggest that extreme weather experiences do not necessarily lead to lasting shifts in public opinion. The research indicates that the impact of extreme weather events on climate change attitudes is not uniform across all events, and the effects, when present, can be temporary. These this challenges some common assumptions that we may hold about how these events shape public opinion. The article also touched on the influence of political ideology. While the primary focus of their main findings was not political, the authors did note that pre-existing political beliefs play a crucial role in how individuals interpret and react to extreme weather events, and whether those experiences ultimately shift their views on climate change. This is just a complex dynamic where personal experiences are filtered through existing frameworks of belief. Visconti and Young's research proves valuable insights into how extreme weather events intersect with climate change attitudes. Based on these findings, the authors concluded that extreme weather events can temporarily shape public perception of climate change, but not all events are equally influential. I initially thought that hurricanes and floods can cause devastating damage, and that would strongly influence climate change attitudes. But the study showed that wildfires stand out instead, likely due to their visibility, destruction, media coverage. Wildfires had the greatest impact on people's attitudes. The study implies that personal experiences of disasters may act as short-term motivators for climate concern, but long-term engagement requires other strategies. In other words, communication strategies that link visible events like wildfires to broader climate events may be more effective than relying on events such as storms or floods, which may not have the same effect on attitudes. In conclusion, it suggests that while some events, like wildfires, can temporarily shift perceptions, this impact is not universal across all event types, nor is it long lasting. This highlights the ongoing challenge of effectively communicating climate change risk and inspiring action. If people's concerns fade quickly after an event, then policymakers, educators, and scientists need to think carefully about how to maintain awareness and encourage long-term action. I chose this article because it effectively challenges a widely held assumption. Many of us might think that if someone experiences a devastating flood or powerful hurricane, they would inevitably become more convinced about climate change. This study, however, shows that the reality is much more nuanced and complex. The finding that only wildfires had a temporary effect while the other equally destructive events did not is truly thought-provoking, and it pushes us to consider why certain events resonate differently and how deeply ingrained beliefs can affect our direct and personal experiences. It's not just about what happens, but how we interpret it that shapes our attitudes, especially when it comes to politically charged topics like climate change. Finally, here's a multiple choice question based on my presentation for the final exam. Which extreme weather event was found to significantly influence people's attitudes towards climate change? Was it A, floods, B, hurricanes, C, wildfires, or D, severe storms? Please take a moment to consider if needed. You can also pause here before I reveal the answer. The answer reflects the central finding of the paper that wildfires, C, stands out as a uniquely impactful event compared to the other disasters. Interesting, right? I hope we learned something new here. So moving on to our reference slide, I have provided the full citation for the article. This article is peer-reviewed, research-based, and directly tied to our course theme of weather, society, and perception. I've also included the direct link to the article's PDF for your convenience. And I just want to thank you all for watching this full video and listening to my presentation. I really hope you found this overview to be insightful because I surely did. And I'm looking forward to your questions and comments on the discussion board. So I will meet you over there on Canvas. Thanks again, everyone.